What's up, guys? It's time for round one with CJ, and we've got a doozy. This is the main event for today. I want to talk about the brewing culture war between the vaccinated and the anti vaccinated and how this whole thing became so polarizing. So, without further ado, let me grab my clock. We're going to start the timer, and 3 minutes is, I don't, this might be the first issue. We might have to go to a round two, but we're going to try to wrap it up and run around because this is going to be a doozy. So, let's get it started. So there's a brewing divide between the vaccinated and the anti-vaccinated and all the information going around about it. But I think my hot take is I think both sides to a certain degree have been insufferable or are being insufferable. So let's start with the let's start with the vaccinated. It's cool. I got the vax. I think that is the best choice to make in terms of just protecting your health and for society as a whole. But at the same time, I don't think it's serves anyone well to ridicule the anti-vax unless they're the ones taking like horsey worm or whatever. Then feel by all means roast them to high heaven. But there's a good chunk of the country that is hesitant to take the vaccine for very reasonable and understandable reasons. Like, I mean, telling people to trust the government's word for it is not a great argument for anything coming from our government. And also, the science has continued to change. Dr. Fauci went on TV and said masks don't work, and then came back on TV later said, "Oh, masks work, but I wanted to save them for the frontline workers." So you just admitted you lied on TV. That undermines his credibility when he's trying to, give medical advice. So, and the science has changed, as they said, with the Delta variant and the virus mutating. What they thought might have been a vaccine is not really a vaccine. So, if it's being marketed as a vaccine, but you could still get COVID, you could still catch COVID, you could still, spread COVID, you can still die from COVID, even though, it's much less of a chance with a breakthrough infection. But all those things are still true. And you can still infect someone in your community with COVID if you're vaccinated and end up killing someone who's unvaccinated or even vaccinated at this point. So I think marketing it as a vaccine is a mistake. And that is causing more vaccine skepticism. If they market it as a COVID protection shot or a COVID defense shot, a COVID, preventative treatment shot, I think that would be a much better marketing tool to use to actually convince people to get this vaccine or treatment, because it's not really a vaccine and people see through that. But for the other end, for the unvaccinated, I don't mind. I fully support your right to not get the vaccine or not want to put anything in your body that you're not sure about. My body, my choice. I believe in that, not just for women's reproductive rights, but I believe in that for medical advice. But if you're going to trust your immune system, you better stay your ass in the house when you get sick, because the issue with the unvaccinated is this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated at this point. The ERs are not full of people who have been vaccinated. They're full of people who are unvaccinated. So if you're going to trust your immune system and fight through it, and you don't want the vaccine, that's cool. I don't believe in in vaccine mandates. So go ahead. That's your right as an American. But stay your ass at home and let your immune system do it, because you're tying up the hospitals, and that's the issue with the infrastructure, or why the vaccine is so important as a whole. So I would say get the vax. I respect your rights and not, but at the same time, go down with the spirit of your convictions. If you think your body's tough enough to fight it, you're gonna have to take that one to the, hopefully not to the grave, but to your recovery. So that's how I feel about it. Everyone needs to take a step back and really listen to each other and not just be divided, because there's a lot of misinformation, and I don't think this is a situation where people are just being irresponsible and bad. I think there are valid concerns on both sides, and we really just need to, let's just take a deep breath and listen to each other and make some sound arguments so we can actually convince people to get the vaccine rather than try to force a jab into everyone's arm. What's up, guys? I'm back, and it's time for round one with CJ, where we take care of topics in 3 minutes or less. And today, we're going to start with Joe Biden ending the Afghanistan war, what that means, and how it's exposed how the military-industrial complex really has a stranglehold on our media. So without further ado, let's hit the clock. So Joe Biden surprised nearly everyone by ending the Afghanistan war, you know, for the most part. I mean, as anything with Joe Biden, you have to read the fine print. He still wants to move troops around, do some shadow wars in Africa and some other bullshit. But right now, we're going to talk about the Afghanistan war and him ending it, because I think this might be the best thing Joe Biden's ever done. And even though the way it was handled might have been a little sloppy, there is no good way to handle this because we shouldn't have been there in the first place. We are invaded a country to supposedly kill Osama bin Laden, who has been dead for about a decade. So, the fact that the country collapsed in about an episode of Friends or something, or like a sitcom TV episode, and the Taliban run the country shows that us staying longer or us staying forever or us trying to prop up that puppet government was pointless. And us staying forever is not a good solution. So Biden tore off the band-aid, and he really has been unapologetic about it, which has been amazing. So I think it's been great. I think the it's exposed our mainstream media, because if you guys remember, Trump, is still hated by the mainstream media, but he got his most friendly coverage when he bombed Syria. When he bombed Syria, it was on Twitter, CNN reporters were with tears in their eyes talking about, oh, now he's finally presidential because he bombed some brown people, basically. But now that Biden actually ends a war, look at how viciously the media has turned on Biden, especially places like CNN, MSNBC, the people who routinely have Raytheon paid defense contractors on there to give their opinion that we should stay in wars forever. Literally, that is their solution for Afghanistan, is, oh, we just need to stay and occupy this country for their resources forever. And that's not a good solution. This war is not wanted by the American people. It's the longest war ever. And it's a war that no one wants anymore. We don't need to be there. We're not wanted. And the fact that he got out, pretty amazing. So I'm going to give Joe Biden props. I'm known as a diabolical Joe Biden hater, like the Skip Bayless of Joe Biden, but I'm really not. I just really like to call it how I see it. So in this case, I'm gonna give him a ton of credit for doing something to end a war rather than to perpetuate them. So even though he voted for all these terrible wars, but this is the least he can do, is end the wars and end the threat to our servicemen. Why are our U.S. troops there dying over there in Afghanistan? When we could use all those resources at home. We don't even have universal health care here in America, but we're over there talking about trying to be the world police. So no, this is great for Joe Biden, despite what the media is saying and how sloppy it was done, and this and that. It was going to be sloppy and it was going to be ugly regardless, because we shouldn't have been there. So big props to Joe Biden for leaving Afghanistan, even though there's a lot more work to do in terms of ending these wars. What's up, guys? It's time for round one with CJ, and today we're going to talk about Texas trying to take us back to the dark ages and going full Handmaid's Tale and basically banning abortion. I want to say after 6 weeks, but let's get right into it, because I've got a lot to say on this. This is a pretty ugly move by Texas Republicans, but nothing out of the ordinary. So without further ado, let's start that clock. So Texas basically has a functional abortion ban. They've banned abortion through a rogue bill that they've pushed through, and it's going to hold up in the Supreme Court. So the what I want to get to, man, this is such an ugly issue, but um, right now Republicans are all screaming "My body, my choice" when it comes to the vaccine. That we should, that every American should have the right to make their own healthcare choices for themselves, and that you decide what you do with your body, what you put in your body, and that's American freedom. But for some reason, that logic doesn't extend to women and their reproductive rights. And the fact that old white men, primarily, especially in the Republican Party, who's gung ho about this, old white men are still legislating reproductive rights for women, and it's really maddening that this is a thing that is continues to happen. And they're really trying to criminalize. It's a class war, it's a race war, and it really is. That might sound hyperbolic, but think about this though. Those Texas Republicans, when their daughter needs an abortion, they're still going to have access to go to a different state. They're going to have the money and resources to do it safely, but the not all the women in Texas will be able to do that now. And this weird need to control women's body and punish them for what they feel like is against their religion or sexual impropriety or whatever. It's a really pathetic bullshit reason to really ruin people's lives. It could ruin lives. It could threaten lives. Honestly, people trying to go through unsafe methods to do what they need to do. So it's really barbaric. The Republican Party is still on this because it's contradictory to everything they really believe in. They call themselves pro-life, but what they call a heartbeat is not even an actual heartbeat in the heartbeat bill. So it's not even at that point yet, and they don't give a shit about, or they don't give a damn about any life that is actually out of the womb. So they're not for healthcare. They're not for any type of welfare. They want to tear down anything remotely resembling a social safety net. But at the same time, they want to force you to have these children, and then what? And then they're gonna basically laugh at you and say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't have had this kid," or they're gonna basically ridicule you and say, "Oh, well, you should have done this, you should have done that," and Monday morning quarterback it, but do nothing to help the solution. So this is again the Republicans doubling down on the culture war and things like this because they have nothing to offer substantially to improve Americans' lives. So they have to double down on their religious fundamentalism and their need for control. They talk about the Democrats wanting to control people and the government with the vaccines wanting to control people while they literally try to control women's bodies. So yeah, Texas, this is pretty pathetic and it's a bad look. And I don't have much more to say about it other than it's a trash move by a trash party.